Not everything is as it seems in Final Fantasy IX. As you can see, not everything is solid. So join me on an adventure as we discover what we can skip and what we can't. Hey everybody, I'm CaptoftheDorks. Currently, I hold a few records that involve the menu buffer skip. So today we're going to go over how the menu buffer skip works. There are a number of different fights that we can avoid. The majority of them we take where we can skip. So the big ones are going to be the prison cage skip in Disc 1. We can actually skip through prison cage, which means skipping the whole Baki section and moving straight on to Plant Brain. We can skip the Moogle cutscene that happens in Gizmo Grotto, as well as I can show you just the movement skip for skipping the second mage fight. We also have the ability to skip the Burmecia mage fight, although that does cause a little bit of a problem, so we don't usually take that one. It's usually pretty negligible to set up. You can also skip the Ralvumago gate when Zidane is leaving on Alexandria Escape. We can skip through that. That one's a pretty tight skip, so I'll attempt to show you that one here today. We could skip the Hedgehog minigame, which saves about a minute, and then we can skip all of the D4 Fiend bosses as well as Deathguise and that 15-minute cutscene that's there. So let's dive right in. So first of all, you're going to need Joy-to-Key to get this to work here. This is Joy-to-Key. It's an open source, or it's free software at the very least, where you can just make a profile and then set the keys, basically what you want. So here is, I'll show you my booster, and here's my 90%. But essentially you can set up different joysticks, so that way it's not just doing the buffer turbos when you're regularly touching the buttons. So we set up it for button 5, and if, well, you can see my button pad here. When I touch the left bumper, that's what it thinks button 5 is. So we have when that button is touched, it's going to joystick 2, and then here is my menu open and my menu closed. So then that corresponds with your Y button. They'll show me this first one. Your Y button. There we go. Y button is button 4. That's your menu button. Essentially, we're tying it to V, which opens it on the keyboard. And then your button, your button 1, which is your cancel button. Or your A button if you're using Xbox. Otherwise, that would be triangle and your X confirm. They also have another one set up, which is nothing. I like to use sometimes too, just have another nothing kind of one that doesn't lead anywhere. And so for that one, that is my right bumper. Just to make sure when I'm holding stuff, it just kind of cancels it all out. So you do that. There's a few other things that you need to do. You can't quite see it because it's opening up another box with Joy-to-Key, but you need to go in and on the right-hand side, internal processing speed. It's going to pop up here. Maybe we can get that to show. There we go. So here's the other one that shows up. Internal processing speed on the right. Put that to ×2, ×4, whatever you need it to be there. That's about it for the configurations. So as for the buttons themselves, when we go into it, it's a pretty simple set. And this is another box. Let me just show you. Here we go. So this one's C. You just type in C, and then auto repeat 30 times per second. Don't have the toggle on and off. You can have that where you just press it and it goes, but it's much better if you hold on to it. So I'll show you how it kind of works in a second there. And then if we wanted to do the ones where we have joysticks, that's just special here, and then we just have it tied to a joystick. So, pretty straightforward on this piece. Oh, it's interesting that it keeps showing that menu. There, as that goes. So cup. so we're making a guide here today. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive right in. So we can dive right in. I'm also using Save Organizer, which is something that I helped repurpose to work. We'll go over that a little bit later. Essentially allows us to load a autosave state so we can just hop right in. Alright, so we should be here right at the prison cage part right here. So we want to be as close as possible to prison cage without actually triggering it. That means we'll have to do less buffers. So there's another thing. When you're menu buffering, it actually holds down what would turn into making your character walk. So if we change our movement to walk, that will make them run, requiring at least half as many buffers, which is pretty great. Alright, so what we're really looking for is this heart-shaped rock here, and that's what we want to be standing on. Anything past that, it's going to trigger the sequence. Essentially, this line here to this line here triggers the whole sequence. So, and if you stand anywhere in this section, it's going to auto moves it in and start the fight. So if we can phase through that, we can actually skip this fight. Because prison cage is not real. Alright, so we're walking now. Remember, you're walking. We're just going to get right on that heart-shaped rock here. And then I'm going to hold my button to basically activate joystick 2. And then I'm going to hold down the menu and the cancel button. And it's repeating at 30 times per second. So that's going to open and close it so we can actually move while the menu, it thinks the menu is open. Will your mouse be captured in your video feed for the guide? It should be. Yeah, you should be able to see it, right? That should be showing through. We actually enabled the fight here because we clicked on the screen. So that's a good example of that. The cool thing is if you do fail the skip, you can simply just exit out of the game and load back in and try it again. You're going to save 2 to 8 minutes depending if you're doing boosters, or 8 minutes if you're doing any percent run. So it's worth it to reset and keep going. It also makes boosters a lot easier. Alright. So we'll continue here. We gotta turn back on walk again. If you're having problems with this, what you could do is just create a new autosave by going out and coming back in. And that way, if you do reset, that's what you're using for that autosave. Alright. So we're staying on this heart-shaped rock. We're gonna change to the second menu, because that's how we set it up, so we don't just buffer through a bunch of things. And then it's kind of like a rolling action. Anion Plays kind of describes it as a rolling action. But we want to hit the top button and then the bottom button pretty quickly. So kind of roll, and then we're going to be holding both. So for me, it's LB to activate that joystick, and then a quick kind of 1-2. If you do it correctly, you'll get this kind of sequence here, where you see the menu open and then it go to black. And then the menu will open again before the area loads. Depending on how tight you do it will depend on how many menu buffers you can get in before it breaks, like it did for me here. Once it breaks, then if you're still in the area that triggers it, you will trigger whatever you're trying to skip through. So the tighter you do it, so there's some caveats. The tighter you do the buffer, the longer it's going to last for the most part. But the less time it gives the Dane to move. So there's kind of some trade-offs there to be optimal or not optimal. Pretty much, for the most part, you just want to just get a good buffer in. Wider buffer, it's like, okay, sure, you might go a little bit faster, but just to make sure you have it, you're going to want to tap that in. One thing I have noticed for PC is that if we have the auto clicker enabled, as we do it, at some spots it helps, in some spots it doesn't help. So I'm just going to pop the auto clicker on. So this auto clicker going at 11 milliseconds. So we'll just pop this on here. Give you a good example. So it's going. Then we're going to try buffer again. And immediately broke. So, Prison Cage is not exactly one that the auto clicker is more advantageous. I see it very advantageous actually with Hedgehog minigame skip, leaving it on. But for Prison Cage, it usually works out a lot better if we don't have auto clicker on. It's kind of weird how that works. You can kind of see it too when you're going through, if you're doing any type of the config menu at the beginning. actually having auto clicker on there at 1 millisecond or even on at 11 milliseconds, I find that the game responds a little better to my controller. So, anyways, let's go ahead and try this again. So see where we're walking here, because our auto save picked that up. We're just gonna get on this heart-shaped rock. We're gonna go ahead and set up again. You can wait a few, but you can just go too. I've noticed that usually a good spot where it does break is about 8 buffers. So if we do wait a few, we could test it. You know, it's obviously a little bit of time waste. So if you feel that it's going well, usually if it doesn't break after the first or second one, you can just keep going. So we're just right through. Boom. And if we look here, we can stand inside prison cage body, and we're prison cage now. So that's fun. Steiner is solid, which is funny to note, but prison cage does not exist. We can actually still trigger the fight if we go back down below, because it's like a trigger area. We can walk over here to our Heart's Delight. We can even just run around here, which is pretty funny. Since encounters are disabled while prison cage is on the screen, we could just run around in this spot for as much as we like. It changes once we come back through here. Well, there you go. There is prison cage. And so we'll go into the next area. And what you'll notice, if I go in the next area and then I come back, he's still there. So you might be thinking, okay, what's going to despawn him? So it's usually any type of cutscene. Here, for example, would have been that Moogle cutscene, so we're going to go ahead and head back. I don't know if CSR reset it, but I know in regular any %, because we were using CSR files, it actually makes it you come back and he's not there anymore. So for this one, what we're going to have to use is actually if you're using CSR and doing skips, you're going to have to use the sequence right here to set. If that doesn't do anything, we're going to actually have to use this fight. Well, we got an encounter before then. But essentially the game likes to set what you're doing. That's quickly. It's going to set what you're doing. Obviously we can't come back after the fight anyways. But it's going to make everything right. It's going to get us right as rain and where we need to go. So even though we didn't have anybody except for Zidane here, the game actually sets Vivi and Steiner with you when you fight Plant Brain. So that's cool. Alright, so that's that skip. It's probably one of the easier skips and one of the more important ones because it does save you a few minutes on any of the runs you do. So let's go ahead and look at the next one. So next one that happens is going to be actually in Gizlem's Grotto. As we head here, there's a movement skip we can do. So what you can actually do is talk to this guy, pick up a bell, and you can skip the second mage battle. We can skip, usually it's an upright here, beat him to the stairs. Well, we can kind of just juke him too here if we want to. So very smart mage in this one. Went straight for the stairs, beat us to the stairs, but normally, like boost or something, you can easily beat that. So, this is CSR, so we're not going to get it, but what we could do here, because we can kind of skip through where the CSR should put us. So you kind of get halfway across this bridge. So kind of, you can see the apex of the bridge down to where that trigger point is. So you can see like right there, right after it, that's what triggers the open part. So we want to be halfway between the apex and the opening that opens up into that area. Any further, and we're going to trigger the sequence. Let's see if we can get an easy mage, or if the mage is going to cause us some issues again. But that mage walks so slow, you should be able to juke him no matter what. Up and then upright. We can usually beat him in the stairs because he just keeps going. And he will not chase you up the stairs, he'll stay down in that smaller area. So once you get to the stairs, you are safe. Alright, so we get about halfway. Then we can do our buffers again. For prison cage, you can do usually about 10. It's pretty solid, depending on how far you're standing back. For this one, we're going to looking probably more at 15, just how wide the trigger area is. We'll go to 20. Okay, so CSR took us in. So we have a very wide piece, so we're not really able to see it. But if you were to get this one, it's one of the harder ones. We can skip the Moogle cutscene. The bell is still closed, but you can just phase right through the bell. In fact, let's go ahead and see if... we're just going to pull off the CSR files here for a sec. I'm going to give that one more try. If you're working on CSR too, a good tip on that, and you want to go back to regular non-CSR, you can actually just go into Steam, right-click Properties, Installed Files, and verify integrity. And so what it's going to do is going to check out the checksum, or essentially just a number it puts on each file. And if it's changed, if it's not the same, then it's going to re-download it for you. So we just got a 10 megabyte update to our game to put us back on to regular Final Fantasy IX files. No more CSR mods. Yeah. So what we're going to actually have to do is we're going to have to load our last autosave, because that auto-saved us with the bell open. So let's give this a try again. One thing I know we didn't do, I think we were still running there as well, so we'll be sure to change that up. That should help us out quite a bit. Okay, so let's go get our extra bell for Mage Skip yet again. Without the CSR file on, I think we should have a better time skipping this mage. Yeah. So everything isn't set in a weird state. So there we go. Same kind of setup. We're looking to be in the middle of this piece. Let's go ahead and put walk on, just so we run when we do our buffers. Oh, okay. I clicked on the game because I didn't think it was responding there. And so we get that sequence, and that sequence lasts like a minute. So this should auto us into the sequence. So if you do miss this one, you lose your autosave, which is very unfortunate. Most of the other skips you can retry, but this is one where it autosaves you into this cutscene. Do Mage Skip one more time. Yeah, it's just up into an upright. Beat him in the stairs. And we're through. Alright, we're gonna actually overwrite the save state we have here, because there's an autosave right there in this room. We will walk. And we'll get our buffers going. It's 10. Yep. So we didn't quite get it. It broke on 11. It's actually a common space for it to break. It's kind of where it broke last time. So it's a very, very tight area. A very hard skip to get. It's much tighter. But it's worth trying if you can set it up quickly and go for it. So you can just fail forward. So we'll give it one more try here. Nice. Okay, so we did get it. We got past that point. As you can see, the bell does not exist. It's fictional. So kind of trippy there here. Just the name just sticking out the side of the bell. But you can still get the chest inside, because that still exists. It just, the bell is just the texture map. It's not a physical barrier. So we can do this skip, save some time. Get the bell and just continue on forward. So this is probably one of my favorite ones, because we can just essentially we're disappeared on the other side of a bell. So anyone where we can just stick out of what essentially is a texture map, just like Prison Cave, is pretty funny to me. Okay, so that one's pretty hard to do. It's worth setting up if you can. As you can see, we actually triggered the spot here. Getting a new autosave. So what you actually have to do is avoid going too far back, go in, talk to Moogles to the right, and it should fix the whole issue for you. Well, that one's a pretty fun one. So this is probably also, yeah, the one you have to be careful on, or else you'll just trigger the cutscene anyways. And then where will you be? Alright, so the next one's gonna be Gate Skip. Oh, this is not the save I wanted to load. The next one's gonna be Gate Skip. So that's just right after it, so we should be able to get to that point by gate skipping. In CSR, you do not need to do this one, as well as the Moogle scene you don't need to do, because it essentially just skips right to it being open. But in regular any percent or boosters, you can do those. Okay. Fortunately, I don't think I have a save running this one. I thought I did, but I guess it was the wrong one. We'll just booster through this section real quick. So, if you have boosters but you haven't done the skip, essentially what we want to do is cycle on battle assist right at the beginning of the battle. So we can cycle on battle assist, we get full ATB before the battle's even started. Really easy to do on PC. A lot harder to do on console, because you actually have to go to the start menu to do it. Or we could just tap, saving all the time in the world. Luckily we have a save really close to this, so this works out really well. Oh, we didn't catch it in time. Luckily only one character trance is nice. So in a normal run it takes about, I think it's 8 seconds to do a trance, and boosters it's 2 seconds. Alright, here we are. Let's turn off our boosters real quick. Let's grab ourselves a new skip save. Those ones pretty difficult to do. So you can see where the gate triggers. It triggers after this. So there's like 3 squares down here. So it triggers after this 3rd square if we go too far forward, right at the tip. Boom. Like right where the sword kind of like trembles down. So once this happens, this is a solid object, as you can see. So once you trigger this, the skip is done. You can't do it anymore. You can reload the room, but you can't retry it from there. You can't menu buffer through a solid object. So there is a point if you menu buffer through the trigger, it doesn't close the gate, and then you can just keep going. What? Wait a second. Did I find a way to just skip the cutscene by load saving? That can't be right. Or did I not overwrite that file? Okay, no, I'm just silly. We didn't overwrite this file. I was like, wait. Can we just load save through that? And that gives us the next point? No, we're gonna have to go back a step here. Unfortunately. So bear with me. As we're gonna have to go through the castle escape again. That didn't overwrite. I pressed load instead of overwrite when I went to save it over. Which is truly unfortunate. But we're gonna go through this lovely castle escape again. Didn't catch the tritium. There's this. Okay, so we are back. So let's save this properly this time. Overwrite. Okay, so this skip is also a little bit weird in the fact that we have to be farther back than where that starts there. We actually want to be between these two squares when we start this, just the way it pans out. So we changed the walk so we can run. Now we're just going to do the same thing. Get our menu buffer started, and we're going to hold down. So there are a couple of these, you can just go until it changes. Visiting is moving you. Alright, so yeah, we menu buffered quite a bit through it. And see, now we're on the other side of this gate, which is really cool. So since we're on the other side of this gate, we can just continue on. And it's going to load the next sequence. Because we exited. So we skipped the entire sequence where Zorn and Thorn come out, and then we have Blank and Marcus. Which is about 45 seconds, so it's no small piece to skip that. It's also a really cool one, because the gate activates when we're on the other side. So, there's that one. That one's kind of easier as long as you get the setup of those two squares we were talking about. Alright, so another cool one here. It's a Hedgehog minigame skip. I like to call it either the Sid or Ico skip, because we're going to see Sid literally turn into Ico in front of our eyes. So this is what I was talking about, what helps out a little bit to actually have the auto clicker, at least for me. Feels like having the auto clicker active is going to help us out for this section. Let's get these mages out of here. So we're going to come on down, and we're going to actually line up between these two posts. So it's usually 2 jumps, a little more. Auto clicker there is clicking for us. What you can do is try to set up manually about right here, or you can reset, and then it's just 2 perfect jumps usually if you stop just short. Okay. So here's without the auto clicker. With the auto clicker, it seems like it breaks constantly. Looks like we got a good one here. But it feels much better when it's not. It's just not. Okay, so our auto clicker here is going to be pointing in. Let's put our auto clicker somewhere where it can't do us any harm, like right here. Okay, we're set up. Nice free auto click. Then we just hold it until Sid reappears. One of 2 things is going to happen. It's going to send us back to go, or we just get through it. And slowly now we're hopping around. See? You can't control Sid usually on this screen. So then poof, Sid is suddenly Ico. It's another cool one. That can save you, the Hedgehog minigames, at least a minute. So this one can save you another minute, which is pretty cool if you can get it set up right. So there you go. So those are kind of, other than the Moogle one, kind of just low pressure ones because you have some time. And you can set up any of these. So here we are on the Maliris one, or Maliris, excuse me. We'll set up walk here real quick. The setup for this one's interesting. It's very visual. We can see here. So you can see kind of this like point here. You can see this point here. So we want to be set up past this point, but before where essentially this blackness hits right here. So we can kind of just hug the edge and line up here on this wall here. Boom, there we are. And we're gonna menu buffer and hold upright. Let me do this one. Menu buffer going, make sure it's good. And it immediately broke. So the easy thing for us to do here is just reset. If you need to do turn walk back on at this point because it's after Nova Dragon, I would recommend that you turn walk on and then essentially reload the autosave. So right here we have run on currently. Let's just turn walk on, head off camera, get a new autosave, head back up, and so that way if we do have to reset this again, it'll already be set. Alright, hug the wall a little bit here. This one's about 14, it's pretty solid. There's 14, and we are free. So very small trigger point essentially is right here. When Zidane passes right here, he's still not standing on like this diagonal line. So it's kind of like this whole section. If you were to think this like one area, here's another area, here's another area, that's where Maliris is. So we can go back and trigger it if we want to, or we can just head on to this section. So this one is this god-awful scene here. On boosters, it's definitely worth skipping too, because it does turn off the speed boost when you hit it. And it costs you 15 seconds. Doesn't matter which version you're in, even in boosters, since it takes off the speed up boost. It's worth taking. So this one can be a little tight and a little finicky sometimes. So essentially what we want to do is go right before the stairs. What you can actually do too is click where you want to stand, if it lets me click. There we go. There we go. It doesn't want to let me click right there. You want to go right before the stairs as much as you can. You gotta kind of be careful with that. And then it's just basically we want to skip the stairs. It's really short. 7 or 8 should do it. I broke right before we skipped it. So yeah, that's another thing. This is one of those where once you do it, it's really not worth resetting. This one's so short, just sit through the 15 seconds at that point. So, but this is one you want to get because this is like some pretty solid time save. You can set it up right away. If you can't set it up right away, you might as well just take it. So right before the stairs, we can get a little closer this time. There we are, on the other side. And we can continue about our business. At this point, we can just leave walk on, and you just hold down the button that makes it run. Make it easy on yourself. Oh, you don't have to keep menuing every time. If you're doing any percent, we're going to be picking up the rune claws here. And so this is another one where you might want to autosave, pick up the rune claws, and then just leave. Because if you do have to reset up the Tiamat thing, you'll get the whole Garland sequence at the beginning. So, unless you think you're going to get it first try, and even then, I would just grab an autosave after the cutscenes happened, after you have already picked up rune claws. There's also cases where you don't even need to pick up rune claws, because we'll be skipping all the other fights. And Transkuja, maybe, if you want him to be alive for Transkuja, there you go. Or else he'll just be hitting like a wet noodle. Rune claws. Go ahead and leave real quick. Go back up. So this one's probably one of the harder visual cues to do. It's going to be that left handrail. We want to kind of be right with it. So we can see this black staircase line right here. We can go one more step. So we went too far. That was a good example, because if you miss where you need to set up for the skip, you can easily cause that. We don't want to sit through Garland talking again. We don't want to have to get the rune claws again. So, great example of that autosave, just saving us some time. We're going to head right up. Stair 1, 2. That's good enough. This one's really quick. We can do it within 10 skips. You can go a little bit safer and do like 12. And that's Tiamat Skip. Again, just a small area that activates it. Just head on in. Put no encounters on. In this instance. So we're gonna get this text right here. Continue on in. As this cutscene right here happens, is immediately when you enter the screen. These are the type of cutscenes where you have no way of doing anything, because we entered and it gave us this cutscene. So there's another type of situation where we just can't skip it. We have no option. Menu buffer just lets us go through trap tiles that have no physical barricade. Continue on in. The Kraken's another one where we have a cutscene right when we enter the room. And so this might be one where you just want to exit. Kraken can be another very finicky one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and exit real quick. Come back in. That way if we have to reload, we don't have to sit through that. Just a little mitigation. Okay, so this one here, we can see this very bright brick sequence. This is kind of what we're lining it up against. So you see this whole thing right here, you got this very bright, very distinct brick sequence right here. We can put that right on Zidane's left shoulder. Anything further is going to trigger. So essentially, once we get here, Kraken's standing right there. So you can just hold up to kind of slide against it. We're going to put it right on his left shoulder. And another holding just upright here. Another good one for 14. You can do much more here too. You're really on it. No, ours just broke. So, good example of why we do those autosaves, because your stutter can just break. Which would kind of suck. Okay. So again, just putting that bright brick on Zidane's left shoulder. $11, $13, $14. And we're good. Hop right through. Alright, so Lich becomes a little bit interesting. If you're on boosters where you don't need Excalibur 2, then you can just keep going through after you buffer. But if you're on any other version, you gotta wait until we're in space and then travel back. So you risk getting an extra encounter, but we need to get that Excalibur. And we save some time on this fight. If you were to just like take any of the fiends after failing, this would be the easiest one. Alright, so here we are. We want to line up right here. So you can see this, the outer octagon. If we just go straight up, the outer octagon's our best bet. And this one's really short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would do 8, 6, 7, 8. One of the shortest pieces. It's like nothing. You walk like nothing through the actual trigger. And so we need to get this sequence here. Once we have this sequence here, we just walk right back. And we get the scene shift. We pick up our Excalibur. And that's Lich. Speed this up a little bit. Booster percent doesn't really matter, but if you're on any percent, you want to set up for your trance Kuja menu. Because once we skip through Deathguise, we immediately get the trance Kuja fight. So we have no real leeway there. So we want to do that menu. And this one is very easy visual as well. So we can see this lighter crystal and this dark bronze crystal. Essentially, the delineation line between the two is right where we want to be with Zidane. So we're just going to head right on up there. Oh, perfect. And there's another short one, usually 10, 8 to 10 here. We'll do the trick. And you'll immediately know because we'll see Trance Kuja instead of it panning up. We'll be like looking down over his shoulder, signifying we're in the Trance Kuja fight. Deathguise takes so long. This one is another one worth resetting for if you do end up not getting the buffer skip. And immediately broke. So this is a nice easy one to skip because it doesn't immediately take you into battle. It gives you that text first, so you don't have to wait the extra couple seconds to get into battle before we can close the game. And there we go. So you guys walk forward, and he talks about like what Deathguise here. And just like that, we are done with the skips, and then Trance Kuja and Necron, and you are done with the run. So very different skips, and really the only one that auto clicker really helps I find is the Hedgehog pie one. You can still get it without it, but for whatever reason, the game just responds better. It might be because Sid is like a hopping frog. I have no idea why. But that is that.